Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now today I'm going to be doing an album review which has been requested. I'm going to be taking a look at this record today, which is The Ghost in the Machine by The Police. So yes, I'll just be doing my usual thing in this video, giving a bit of background information about the album, showing you my vinyl copy of it here, and then looking at each of the album songs in detail. So this review was requested by a user called Monkey7177. So thank you very much for requesting this review, and it was a good one to request, I think, because it was an album that I wasn't really familiar with at all, really going into making this video. Of course I knew the three big hit singles, but really the rest of the album is not one that I'd really paid too much attention to. So no, it was good you requested this, and yeah, we'll see what I think of it as we go on. But yeah, no, this was The Police's fourth album, released on the 2nd of October in 1981. And it represented a bit of a change in direction for The Police. I think up to this point, all their albums, I think, had the same producer, possibly, and they were kind of sort of similar sounds, but maybe slightly getting a bit more sophisticated gradually, as they went on. But basically, this album represented quite a significant shift in the band's sound. So it was produced jointly by The Police and Hugh Padgham. Now, this was the first time that they had worked together, and Padgham would then go on to produce their next album, Synchronicity, as well. And this album was recorded at George Martin's Montserrat Studios, his Air Studios in Montserrat. And I think that, and yeah, by this point, in 1981, The Police were probably the biggest band, around, really. I don't think they had very many, rivals, in terms of, being, a hugely successful, well-known band, in, the UK. And really, up to this point, they had been really working their socks off, really, in a very much a kind of tour album kind of cycle. And we're sort of, A&M there. A&M, the label, was very much pushing them to sort of pump out the albums, get as much music out there as possible. But for this record, though, that changed a little bit. They were afforded a 6-week stay on the island of Montserrat, and were allowed to sort of expand the sound a little bit. So with Padgham, they tried out some new recording techniques, which included playing all of their parts in separate rooms. So I think you had Sting plugging directly into the console, on his bass. I think Andy Summers was maybe in the studio room, and then I think Stuart Copeland was out in a hallway. So they were trying out some new ways of recording. Now, as I said earlier, their sound was also radically changing as well. So they were really growing in the use of the synthesizers on this album. They'd been slightly creeping through a little bit on Zenyatta Mondata, but on this album they're very much the four. And then the other big instrument on here is the saxophone as well, which Sting played all himself. Now, this did lead to some tension starting to emerge in the band, or possibly boil over is probably probably the more accurate way of saying. Basically, I think Andy Summers in particular felt that the kind of Magic 3 combo off The Police was slowly being lost a little bit, and I think he said in retrospect that we ended up being a backing singer doing Sting's pop songs, which so I don't think they had a lot of happy memories making this album, and they would soon break up after one more album. Now, actually, this album was a big commercial success, so it topped the charts in the UK and reached number 2 in America, and critically is quite a well-revered album. It ranked at number 322 on Rolling Stone magazine's 500 Greatest Albums list, so it's quite a feat even getting on that list, really. And it also was ranked at number 76 on Q magazine's top 100 British albums, so yeah, quite a well respected and certainly very successful album as well. So I will try to show you my vinyl copy of it here. This is just a bog standard original UK pressing, very common album. One thing I did learn while I was researching for this video was that this cover is actually supposed to resemble their faces. Now, I really don't see it. I think people say the middle one's Sting with his little spiky up bit of hair, but the other two, I mean they all just look like these kind of digits, these kind of slightly distorted kind of digits on a calculator. So yeah, like I don't really see that like on like the cover personally. Back cover is as plain as you get, just completely black there. And then the inner sleeve is alright actually, it's kind of got a kind of switchboard kind of design with their faces kind of hidden, like hidden on it. That's pretty cool. And then the label as well is on a kind of customized label, so you got the kind of blue text there, and then it on green on the other side. So no, yeah, that is the vinyl record looked at. Okay, so we'll now get into my track by track review. So I'll score each song out of 10 and then use those scores to give us a overall percentage marking for the album. Now the album kicks off with Spirits in the Material World, which was one of the singles from the album. It's probably one of the more well-known songs on the album, but it is one of my personal least favourite Police singles, really. It's quite an uncommercial song, like, and so it's a quite a daring track, I guess, to release like as a single and to almost, yeah, kind of kick off like this album with. It's a very rhythmic track, this one here, with a kind of complex beat, and Stuart Copeland's really doing some quite impressive stuff like on like the drums on here, but the song itself is just pretty tuneless, I'd say. It kind of feels like Sting's almost just kind of sort of speaking over it, and the lyrics are quite, yeah, I guess they're quite political and about like sort of like it's like, but it's a bit, just comes across as a bit generic and a bit like it's like quite high ideas kind of thing about like the human race, and like he sings like there is no political solution to our troubled evolution, have no faith in constitution, he sings on. So they just, to me, come across as a bit meaningless and a bit like kind of just rhyming for rhyme's sake a little bit, just too vague to have like any real meaning really for me. And yeah, as a song it's okay, but it's not one of my favourite songs really. As a single it did okay. I think it was something maybe like the third single from the album, so like on like Police albums never normally did particularly well. Thinking of like Bed's Too Big Without You, I think was a bit of a kind of like underwhelming third single. This one's kind of similar, reached number 12 in the UK and number 11 in America. So yeah, Spirits in the Material World would get a 6 out of 10 from me. Next up is Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic. Now I've got the 7-inch single that I just recently picked up here to show. So yeah, that's on the cover there, just a nice picture of them, and then the album cover on the back, and we're on the usual A&M records for that there. Now this is definitely the most well-known song on the album. Everyone will know this song, and it is a really good song. You know, as a single, it's a solid single. It's poppy. It is an obvious choice for a hit single, but does have quite an interesting history. It kind of goes back quite a few years. I think Sting had this kicking about, I think, before their debut album even, so it goes way back to kind of, yeah, like 1976, 1977, but he kind of held it back, I think, maybe thinking it was a bit too commercial, a bit too poppy for like the Police. But by this point, when they were trying to like expand their sound, I think he kind of like went back to this song and went in a studio just himself and a keyboard player called Jean Roussel, yeah, like this, like they basically like recorded like a demo like off like it, and basically this demo was so complete and so like good sounding that they basically just went with it like for the album. So I think basically Stuart Copeland like did some drumming on it. Andy Summers a little bit like off guitar. You can't really hear the guitar all that much like on this song, and then it's got, yeah, the kind of, they give it a kind of slightly Caribbean-y kind of flavour, possibly inspired by their surroundings like on Montserrat, but no, like it's a good catchy song. I mean, the reason why like I'm bumping it down a mark is just because I think it is far too long. I think it definitely drags this track, and yeah, just an overlong fade out, and I can do without all of his kind of like vocal like improvisations like towards like the end. I just think he had a great wee pop song there, and they just let it go on for too long. So I'm saying a 9 out of 10. I could probably even knock it down to like an 8 possibly, just because the outro really does my head in actually. So yeah, no, like I would actually give this one like an 8 out of 10 now, like I've decided. But no, successful single though, reached number 1 in the UK and number 3 in America. Okay, and then the next track up on the album was another single from it. I think the debut single again, like the UK, which was "Invisible Sun" here. Now this is a really good song actually. This is probably my favourite like on the album. It's a really moody song. This one here, sounds quite ahead of its time as well. Very synthy, but quite dark. Kind of synth psych on it. And yeah, like it's a song which lyrically like, is also quite good. So I was inspired by the hunger strikes like undertaken by like IRA prisoners. So he sings like on it like, I don't want to spend the rest of my time in hell looking at the walls of a prison cell. I don't want to ever play the part of a statistic on a government chart. So the good lyrics, and it then kind of then talks about like this like invisible sun that kind of like is like this symbol of hope, like I guess, like sort of thing. No, like a good song actually. Like I do rather like Invisible Sun. Doesn't drag, and it's an interesting departure like for like the Police as well. It really stands out. Like when like you listen to say like a greatest hits collection, this is a song that really stands out because it is distinctive, but it's still really good. And yeah, it reached number 2 here in the UK. So yeah, Invisible Sun, we get a 9 out of 10. Okay, and then now the 4th track on the album now is called Hungry for You. Now this is not a very good song, I don't think. It's got, again, it's one of these tracks, there's quite a few tracks now in the middle bit like off this album which are quite groove orientated and quite rhythmic, which again I don't mind that in music sometimes, but I just yeah, like I don't know, I just also feel that like the kind of songs that they kind of put on top of them are a little bit weak, and this one is definitely that, because he sings it all in French kind of thing, which I just think is it just sounds very pretentious, you know. I think Sting was famously quite like up himself like a little bit, and this song definitely just feels like he's just trying too hard a little bit, and I think like we actually like translate the lyrics, they're not actually really saying anything profound really. It's just a song about, it's just kind of like lustful song, like I'm hungry for you kind of thing. So yeah, it's not really saying like anything like at all. But again, it's a good performance. So I think again, Stuart Copeland's really the star like of the show, like on here, and again like some punchy horns, which again really go through the track, almost too well through like the song, like sort of like too relentless like through like the track, like, but it's okay, but not one that I ever would really go back to. Okay, and then side 1 closes off with Demolition Man. Now this one here is it's a track that was originally done by Grace Jones. Like I think Sting gave her like the song, she put it out, and then the Police decided to put out like their own version of it. It's a kind of there's a few songs on this album that have a kind of slight kind of sci-fi kind of theme like to them, and this one is possibly sort of fits into that kind of category, about a kind of demolition man who wants to kind of destruct, like, and like destroy things. He sings like, I am a walking nightmare, an arsenal of doom. I can kill conversation as I walk into the room. But it's just, again, for me on this one here, the musical performance is just pretty aimless, I think. Like Andy Summers just doesn't know what to do, like on like guitar, like on here, just kind of noodling away, like in like the background on it. And again, it's far too long. Like they like really stretch this song out. I think this is actually like the longest song, like in like the Police discography, that runs out for about 6 minutes, and it has no right being that length really for me. It's just a forgettable song, Demolition Man. I don't really care for it. 4 out of 10. Okay, next up now, opening up side 2, we get Too Much Information, which is another song that I am not a big fan of, it has to be said. Another horn-heavy track, this one here, with just some quite... It's catchy, this one, but it's an annoying, like, kind of, like, catchy for me. Very repetitive song about, too much information rung through my brain, too much information driving me insane is essentially the kind of gist, like, off, like, the lyrics, quite shallow lyrics. But I guess there's maybe some kind of prophecy around this song, about, this was obviously well before the advent of the internet. So I guess it's maybe now a song that if he's moaning about too much information and that, it's probably a song that you can kind of just sort of yeah, that's just daily life. But maybe back then it was a kind of perhaps a nightmare scenario kind of thing, possibly, and something that was perhaps maybe a terrifying prospect perhaps, but just kind of, yeah, in today's ears doesn't really have the same impact, or for me any impact really, and yeah, it's just not a song that I would ever really go back to. Next up now for me is what I would probably call a hidden gem on this album, which is Rehumanize Yourself, which I really like. This one was co-written with Stuart Copeland, who I think had the song originally. It had the music and some lyrics, but I think Sting wasn't a big fan of his lyrics, and so decided to replace them. And actually, I'm quite glad he did, actually, because I think the lyrics in this are very good, and it's that kind of yeah, it's a bit of a fiendish song in a way, because it's very upbeat, very catchy, very easy on the ear. The melody is a real return to form for the Police. It's probably the most this album gets to sounding something like Message in a Bottle, or tracks from We Got a Deadline or Zenyatta Mondatta. It's got that kind of great performance, but also a great song, a great melody, which is just missing from so many of the other tracks on here. But yeah, say it's kind of it's got that kind of two halves, because yeah, musically it's very upbeat and very catchy, but lyrically is essentially talking about, it's a bit of an anti-racism song about a guy who's basically been radicalized, and sort of talking about being radicalized by the National Front, and things they kicked a boy to death because he don't belong, is one of the lines I got it. And then it is also uses quite a significant swear word, which I won't repeat on here, but basically, yeah, he thinks something about Billy's hanging out with the other runts or something like that. So it's a good song which you could easily miss the lyrics, which I do quite like songs like that, where it's easy to kind of miss what he's singing about, sort of thing. It makes you want to scratch the surface a little bit deeper, on the song. Next up on the album is One World, Not Three, which is the weakest song on the album for me. I think this song is pretty terrible, really. I'm giving it a 3, but I could easily go a lot lower than that. It's a kind of, ska sort of style track, this one here, but again, with a very repetitive horn riff that kind of goes through the song. And just a kind of, it's a preachy lyric for me, which basically is talking about the merits of there being no borders and we're all in the same big boat kind of thing. I don't know, I do agree with a lot of the message on it, but just the way it comes across just sounds quite inauthentic for me, with the Police, and when Sting tries to get political like this, it just sounds shallow, and again, it just doesn't have any depth to the message at all, really, that one world is enough for all of us. It kind of goes goes the song, but it's not this kind of rabble-rousing anthem either that would kind of suit a simple message, It just feels like a kind of aimless band jam, really, that probably should have been left at a sound check, really. Next up on the album is Omega Man. Now, this is the Andy Summers contribution to the album, and this is a pretty decent track, actually. It's it's another one of this kind of sci-fi kind of inspired songs on the album, basically about this character called the Omega Man, who is from literature or film, I think it's from a 1971 film I've got noted here, about, I think he was the last guy left on Earth, the last person left on Earth, and it's kind of it's kind of the lyrics are sort of based on that kind of premise. Musically, it's really good. I think it's got a good robust guitar riff on it, and again a solid chorus which Sting sings really well. Apparently as well, I read that this was earmarked as the first single from the album, but Sting vetoed it, probably for obvious reasons, because he didn't write it, which again is probably something that I can imagine further exacerbated the tensions and rift between the band members. Next up on the album is A Secret Journey and penultimate track, which is a good song, this one here. Again, it's maybe not a standout track really, but it's a good song about I guess the lyrics on this are about going on a spiritual journey. You will see light in the darkness, you will make some sense of this. When you make your secret journey, you will find this love you miss, he sings on it. And musically, like, it's pretty good. I think it's got a good it's a dynamic song, at least. You know, it's kind of the verses are doing one thing and then the chorus is doing something completely different. Again, Andy Summers has got some great guitar work like going on like on it, and it's just an interesting production. I think sonically, like, it's quite a lush song, and is really, I think, probably one of the prime examples, like, on this album, of that collaboration between band and producer working kind of hand in hand and kind of making something like really good, actually. This was a US single from the album as well, reached number 46 on the Billboard Hot 100. One of the slightly stronger tracks like on the album, but in the grand scheme of things, I think it's still only really a 7 out of 10 song, and the verses are quite forgettable, but the chorus is good and does have some impact. I can dream of schemes when I'm sitting in my seat. Okay, and now the last song on the album is called Darkness. Now, this is the Stuart Copeland contribution to finish the album, and it is probably one of my least favourite lyrical premises, like, in a song. Basically about a famous band or rock star, singer, whatever, celebrity moaning about being famous. So he sings on it like, I wish I never woke up this morning, life was easy when it was boring. And it's just one of these woe is me kind of songs, which just is very hard to kind of have any kind of sympathy or any kind of connection like with, really. It's a interesting musical arrangement, I'll give it that. It's kind of mostly piano based, this one here, with some kind of filtered guitar like going on like in like the background. But I mean, overall it is a bit of a dud like as a final track. Okay, so overall, this album has got 60%, which, if you are familiar with my reviews, it's not a great score. I think I've actually got a leaderboard of all the albums I've reviewed ever, and this one comes fairly close to the bottom. I think there's maybe about 4 or 5 other albums slightly above it, but that's just the nature of this. You know, like, I tend to review albums that I really like. So yeah, like with like this album here, which is just a middling album for me, like in like the grand scheme of things, yeah, it does come, it maybe seems worse like than like it actually is, sort of thing. Like overall though, it's an album that I don't really have a lot of affection for. I think it is probably the Police's worst album, and it is definitely a turning point for them as a band, but also Sting like as an artist as well, becoming a lot more political and kind of topical like in like his writing. But I think was very much his undoing, I'd say. You know, I think he became, I think he just has a sense of like inauthenticity about him, like when like he's writing like these kind of songs, and like just either just the way that he's like putting like it like across, or also I think just the fact that at this point, you know, the Police were huge. They were a massive band, a hugely successful band touring the world, and again, I guess just some of the content on here just feels a bit preachy. But then also some of the music is just boring for me as well. I think some of it, they're just, I appreciate they maybe trying something a bit different with the kind of slightly more rhythmic orientated approach rather than the kind of songwriting approach and kind of like building the kind of music around the song. Here it just feels too much maybe aimless band sort of jamming like kind of thing. But there are some good tracks on here, and I think when it is like its most successful on, say, things like Secret Journey and Rehumanize Yourself, is when the whole band are pulling together and using all of their strengths, particularly like Andy Summers, who was fairly absent for most of this album, but when he's on this album he's really, really, really good, and like on like those couple of tracks like it, like really works well. So no, an interesting record here though. Yeah, for me to review, it's not every day like I do a review like of an album that I'm not a massive fan of, and yeah, I must say to like Monkey 7177, like you like originally requested it, it's maybe not the review that he was maybe hoping like that I'd do, but I am yeah, like very interested to get people's requests. But yeah, like, I might not always like the albums that are requested, but that's, I guess, just the nature like of like opinions and yeah, making these videos, like I'm like reviewing stuff. But no, I hope you have enjoyed the video though, and yeah, like if you have got like any requests for future reviews, yeah, please feel free to leave them below in the comments, and I will see you all next time for the next video. Goodbye.